Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition, and today we are going to focus on why human realities take so long to shift. And this is a question that comes up a lot when we start talking about the difference between our soul aligned realities and how they seem to be constantly shifting, and our human realities. That when we look back on them, we seem to stay in them for years and years and years and years, cycles and cycles and cycles and cycles, and nothing ever seemed to really move. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and why that is. So there's, of course, like everything else, there's a zillion reasons why it is. We're going to focus on the ones that I can get during this video. And you will probably be able to think of more. As you continue to raise your vibration, you're going to find that all of a sudden you're going to have a lot of insights as to why realities went down a certain way, why certain things had to be the way they were, why you're in a certain place at a certain time. You might even start to get hints of what's to come. So it's kind of fun to start playing with your reality, playing with the matrix. When I do my Twitch streams, we always talk about it as the matrix. But the matrix is inside first. And when we talk about our human realities, they don't change, or there is such a slight tweak in them, but the energetics of the reality is always the same. You know, you might get a new job. You might get a new boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife, but the energy doesn't change. And we start to feel like nothing changes. I remember I used to have, like, I would say it all the time in my human days, like, oh, shit never changes, like nothing ever changes. But that's because I'm not changing. Remember, our outside world is just a reflection of our inside world. If I'm not changing anything inside, I'm going to continue to just get a carbon copy of what I just saw. Now, technically, that's never going to be exactly true, because you're always going to be ticking up a little bit. Every reality, every reality that, it's funny, it's not even anyone here, but I still rather shoot in the room. The room I'm in, because the vibration's the highest here, so that's why I tend to now pick this spot to film. Every reality we go into, we're always going to take a little bit higher. You know, we're never going to be exactly the same. Something's always going to feel a little off. It's just not enough for our human to notice the difference. The real difference. A different location, all that stuff is just window dressing to a reality. What makes up the reality is the energy we started from. And if we're always starting it from the same human energy of want, need, lack, shame, guilt, disrespect, we're going to keep getting the same reality. It doesn't matter how long it takes that one to play out. You're almost like you're in a book, and each chapter you're just reading the same damn shit over and over again. You're like, oh my God, I cannot believe it. I went through a string of boyfriends years ago, and it was like I repeated the same thing like 3 times, and I got to the end and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Can we close this book? It was the same story over and over and over and over again. Though there was a slight difference here and there, but the energetics that supported the reality, and when I say the energetics that supports the reality, it's what keeps the reality, it's what moves the reality. Energy moves something. The energetics of the reality is what's moving it. What you're creating, what you're feeding into it energetically is going to push it. That's what you're basing it on. And if you're basing it on human stuff, now there's a parallel here. I don't know if I say parallel, paradox. That's one where I'll say human realities are going to collapse. Right? There's nothing that keeps them afloat anymore. As soon as we pull out of it, it collapses. And if we try to stay in certain things too long, they'll collapse on us because our vibration gets to a certain point. But I will tell you, when you're in your human realities, it can take a long time for that shit to collapse. It is not going to collapse right away. It will take a while. It will collapse, but it will take a while because we're not doing anything to shift inside. We're not doing anything consciously to raise the vibration of our body. We're still in the same stuff over and over and over again. And that's why it takes so long. We're not proactively shifting anything inside out. Everything other than that, it's just window dressing for the reality. Look how many times we stayed stuck in stuff that, whether it was a job we didn't like, and then we just boomerang to another job. And another reason is we never gave the reality time to reset. We get too much in the fear of whatever our story is. So if you got laid off from a job, or you decided to leave your job, I know I'd done both over the years. You just try to jump right into the next one right away. I never gave the realities time to reset because I was so afraid. Oh gosh, oh, what if I don't have a job? You know, I was, you know, single. I'm not gonna be able to support myself. What am I gonna do? You know, panic, 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 panic. So it pushes us to jump right back in. And we don't give our body time to recalibrate. We talk a lot on this channel about recalibrating the body. The body has to be able to set out for a while and leave a reality behind and recalibrate your body to then go on to the next reality. It's not as simple. Well, it is organically simple, but for a human, it's not as simple as just jump into another one. We have to give our body time to kind of reset, recover, and understand that, okay, now we can go into the next one. This is kind of how it works. Whereas when we get into our new earth realities, our soul aligned realities, they tend to shift and change a lot, you know, because we start to understand the energetics of what's going on. We start to understand what we're creating. We're consciously creating the reality. I'm going to use the word policing ourselves. I usually don't use the word policing, but I'm going to use it. We're policing ourselves as to what we're doing and why we're doing it. We're holding ourselves accountable. As a human aspect, we don't hold ourselves accountable. We want to hold everyone else accountable for our life, no matter what happens, whether it was a bad breakup or a bad boss or bad neighbors, or I'm going to use the word good and bad. I usually don't use that one either, but you get the point. We don't hold ourselves accountable. We hold everybody else accountable for whatever. Even when we look into things that aren't even in our actual reality, but they're in someone else's, we still want to go, okay, that person is the victim and that person is the one that did it to the other person. We have a protagonist, we have an antagonist. You know, that's just how our human likes to label everything. It keeps it simple. It keeps it easy. But the higher your vibration goes, you start to see it's not that easy. It's not that black and white. It's not that simple in a sense. It's very simple, but not that type of simple. You know, there's a lot of gray in all these realities. We sign up for every one of them, no matter what role we played. So when we get into our soul line realities, they're shifting all the time because we're consciously raising our vibration. We're cutting off realities that aren't highest aligned anymore. We're letting them close out. We're not fighting the close, you know. We're not lingering on. We're not trying to rush a close to get some kind of... We've talked a lot about the physical ending and the energetic ending of a reality. Sometimes we try to physically end it before it's energetically done. We try to energetically, it's energetically done, but we're trying to physically hold on to it. We usually go one or two ways with it. We stop doing that. We start letting them close out. We start looking when they're not aligned anymore. We start looking at how they're affecting our body. And when we start to do that, we start to see how often they're shifting. So any soul line reality I get in, whether it's, you know, a lot of these realities, they're not sexy realities. So like the one I'm in now would not be considered a sexy reality by any means, but it's important for me to do it. It's important for me to do it now because it lines up for me to do it now. And I need to go on to some other stuff later on. And the people I'm with here aren't going to be around for those realities. So there's a reason why I'm doing this one now. It's a divine timing, you know, it's a cadence to it. It's a rhythm to it. And we start to understand that. And we start to see all the things we have to do and all the things that we're supposed to contribute to humanity. And we don't get caught up in the procrastination of humans. You know, human realities don't change because as humans, we never change anything. Anytime anyone from a human aspect would tell me, oh my God, I love change. I love when change happens. It's complete bullshit. You know, it's complete bullshit. We like the small changes. You know, we like the little things that change. We don't mind a little change here, a little change there, but when you're talking about soul aligned realities, they don't look anything like human aligned realities. So you're uplifting everything you ever thought you were supposed to do, everything you ever thought that you wanted to do or get into, everything you ever thought you would accomplish, everything you studied to accomplish. It all goes out the window. I mean, you'll work years and years and years on stuff and see basically from a human perspective, a human judgment of a reality, no movement on anything, because we have to counterbalance the 40, 50, however long it is, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of operating from making human decisions and putting that out in the world and all the ripple effects that caused that we didn't even realize it caused. And now we have to counterbalance that with everything on a soul line reality we're doing from a totally different vibration and a totally different place. For love, for humanity. And it takes a lot to balance that It takes a lot to balance that scale. That scale is not easily balanced. It takes a lot to balance that scale. You know, that's not an easy thing to balance. So it can take time. It can take years, you know, but you might be talking 4 or 5 years, and it took you to counterbalance 40 years. But look at the amount of work we're putting out in those 4 years compared to how much work. I know how much work I put out now and how much work I put out in my human realities. Doesn't even come close to how much work I put out now. It's constant. It's constant stuff, creating constant stuff all the time. So look at what you're holding on to. Look at what you don't want to change. And we have to be really honest about it. And not only when the reality starts to break down, we have to look where we're trying to hold them in place with our body. I think I mentioned this in the video a couple of times ago. I don't remember, but I've done so many. We have to look at where we are intellectually leaving the reality behind, but we're still holding it in our body by the way we're talking about it. You know, we can say, oh, I understand soul contracts. I understand we were all in it for this reason. I understand I signed up for it. But the energy or the tone of my voice when I talk about it is still really, really pissed off about it. That's what we call it. It's an intellectual understanding, but you're still holding it in the body. So energetically, we're transmitting one thing, but verbally we're saying something else. So we have to look at that. And that's what consciousness is. It's looking at all those things. It's preparing ourselves for, you know, the next reality. You know, my 2023 reality won't really start coming in until March as far as us anchoring it in. And anchoring it in for me means I'm actually participating in doing the reality. Right now I'm just kind of finishing up some 2022 stuff that I, you know, had gotten kind of moved around because I wasn't ready to finish it yet. That's another thing with soul aligned realities. We might feel really strongly we're supposed to do something, and we'll do it, but we kind of almost get it all the way done and kind of not finish it, and we go off and do something else. I've had a couple of projects start like that where I was doing one, but then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I don't have either the funds to finish it. I don't know what else to say. If it was a book or a couple books I was writing, and they're just not quite there yet. So I go on and might do something else for a year and a half, and then go back to it. So just look at what you feel called to do. Procrastination is a massive thing, and be ready for your realities to really start to shift. And that's where it can get really challenging. You know, ascension is not all rainbows and kittens and puppies, but that's because we won't let it be. You know, we're so ingrained in our human stuff that it really gets challenging when all that stuff gets challenged, all your beliefs get challenged, and everything kind of gets ripped away and turned upside down, and everything that a human reality would judge is what you now have to go out and do. And that can be a pretty long journey, and most of the time we're doing the journey by ourselves for a majority of it. So, but I would say when you get through those parts where our human is really fighting it, and we don't realize how much we're fighting it inside, we get to those parts where we're really, really fighting it, and we finally just kind of let go, the amount of peace that we feel and the amount of connection we feel inside, no matter how rough ascension can be sometimes, because, you know, we make it that way. I've made my journey a lot harder than it had to be. But in the time, I didn't realize how much I was holding on to all the old human stuff I wanted to keep, just because I thought I had to keep it. How am I supposed to do something another way? That's the way I know how to do it. Till you start unlocking your DNA, unlocking your genetics, and you start to understand all these things you can do a different way. But when we're in the middle of these realities, it's hard to see that. It's always easier to see someone else's stuff because you don't have the attachment. You don't have all the weight to it, in a sense. It kind of keeps us in those realities, all the things we don't want to leave behind. So when we talk about, you know, getting to the next reality, just look at where we are holding things in place, where we don't want them to change, where we're fighting them. And now I've gotten to the point where I try to enjoy every reality I'm in, because when you're in the soul aligned realities, they don't last that long. 2.5 years, if you're kind of giving it everything you got. It feels like a long time when you're in it because you want to go to the next thing, but when you really look at it, like every 6 or 9 months, you can start to see the changes in that reality and how it's starting to dissolve, or it's starting to take on something else because you've shifted enough now. Place you used to go, you can't go anymore because your vibration's so discordant now to being set in that space, wherever that space is. So you start to see how quickly it is changing, and you really will never be in that spot again. So enjoy it when it's there, and just know that the next one will be there very quickly. They're not like human realities. You got to kind of, you know, put our big girl panties on, big boy panties on, and just hit the road with it. So, okay. Keep practicing the art of intuition.